Support for Just Seen It comes from Acorn, distributors of Miss Fisher's Murder Mysteries, a modern detective series set in 1920s Melbourne. Now on DVD and Blu-ray. More information is available at acornonline.com/PTV. On this episode of Just Seen It, we review the coming-of-age drama, The Kings of Summer.
Sorry, Dad. Who was he doing a show for?
Oh my gosh, I know, it's like he's on camera.
Are there girls around?
Yeah, there must be, oh.
This is a great coming-of-age story with absurdist flourishes that combine together to really make a unique picture.
The remake of the classic novel, The Great Gatsby.
You can't repeat the past.
Can't repeat the past.
No.
Baz Luhrmann's directing style and his remixed music really makes this era in time vibrant and accessible to everyone.
The spy thriller, The East.
Gentlemen, we are in 32 countries protecting your good names.
I know the East is trying to say something. I just can't figure out what it is.
And Star Trek Into Darkness.
Such action violates the Prime Directive.
Shut up, Spock. We're trying to save you, damn it.
Doctor, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Spock, we're talking about your life!
Star Trek Into Darkness boldly goes where no Trek has gone before, and then some.
All right here on Just Seen It. Three teens decide to spend the summer free of their parents' rule.
What could you be showing me in the woods right now?
This is the side of our new house, man.
What, like a tree house?
They work together to build a house in the woods and live off the land.
No parents, no one telling us what to do. We make the rules.
But their idyllic summer quickly becomes a test of their friendship in The Kings of Summer.
Hi, I'm Brenna.
I'm Kevin.
And I'm Salim, and we're here to talk about the new movie, Kings of Summer. We've all just seen it. Kevin, why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
So Kings of Summer is about three kids who want to spend the summer away from their parents, so they decide to build a house in the forest.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, they want to spend their lives away from their parents. Like,
well, yes.
Their intention is to live here forever. Like the $300 they stole out of their dad's pocket. The story's very simple, but it's still very realistic. These teenagers are mad at the world and mad at their parents. They want to go off and they want to be men. The problem with all of this realism is that you get a really obnoxious, unsympathetic 15-year-old lead.
I don't see that at all.
I really thought this movie was a pleasant surprise. For me, the one part that I didn't like was the obvious farce of them creating this house. And I think it would have been a little bit better managed if it was like a Wes Anderson type of a movie, which is a little bit more fantastical at times. But it had this grounded nature to it, which I really enjoyed. And I like these characters. I like Joe in the fact that he has a single father who is kind of a jerk to him. And granted, he has all this privilege, but still he feels like he's being suffocated by his dad. And I think that, you know, it's interesting when connecting it with Patrick, his best friend, who has these parents who literally are just
constantly on top of him.
Exactly. Megan Mullally plays it perfectly. And what I love is seeing the arc of these two characters.
Yeah, Chris Coleta, who wrote the script, I think it was really perceptive because it took these kind of absurd situations, but actually really grounded in reality as far as the emotions, how they reacted to things. There was some subtlety to it, which I really appreciated.
So you wore the blue shirt today, not the one with the pocket? It's got the blue one.
Yeah? Whoa. Rope in the attitude, mister. This
Come
is your
on,
mother
buddy.
you're speaking to.
Come on.
Huh? Sorry, Dad.
Every time I see the house, it completely breaks my suspension of disbelief because you're sitting there and you see the montage, you're like, okay, they're building the house, and then you're like, okay, it's gonna be like a little shack or something, and then you see the final product, and you're like, no way.
Well,
it was a shack.
It was a shack.
It was a beautiful house.
I mean, it was just sustainable for them to live in, but either you allow it to bother you or you just forget about it and you watch the rest of the movie because of the characters and the journey that they're on.
To me, it wasn't about the house.
Yeah.
It was about them.
Yeah.
So the house was just kind of integral to, okay, this is what it's going to be. I could suspend.
Yeah, I mean, it was really about these relationships, the father and the son relationship, which I thought was very important.
So what do we think about the people who played these characters?
Nick Robinson, who plays Joe, I felt that they just followed a teenager around and didn't tell him he was being recorded because he was so his performance was so believable. He was so accurate.
Yeah. No, he was so idyllic at the very beginning of it. He had these fantasies, these ideas of what he wanted his world to be.
And we'd see his fantasies.
We'd see it. And it was great because you felt like, I like this kid, you know, he's a nice guy. And then as things change, you start to see his arc and him change.
Listen, Kelly, Joe can't talk right now because he's grounded. He will call you back sometime before his hot new bedtime of 7:30. You have a good night. My house, my rules. This ends today.
Yes, it does.
The biggest surprise for me was Moises Arias, who played kind of this weird kid that just shows up at a party and follows him around and becomes their little buddy. He was so quirky and weird, and I almost didn't know if it was going to work because he was so weird, but he steals the entire movie, I think.
I thought he could have become a caricature of himself, but because he started like that, I was with it. I wanted to hear him saying more and more just outlandish things.
My name is Jamal Colorado, and I have kidnapped your son. Ann Fernie, Texas. Deshaun, Utah.
Yeah, I decided on the format of Denzel Washington, a black first name followed by a state.
Good effort, although savagely racist.
He was so charming and so funny in it that I was able to forgive his absurdity, even though he was pretty much a mini Zach Galifianakis. Like, any second I expected him to say, you can join my one-man wolf pack. And that's the kind of ridiculousness he was in this film.
The way they're directed, the absurdity of that character and some of the other situations is actually what makes the realism and the drama part work. Because if it wasn't, it would just be kind of a standard indie drama, kids going through their kid stuff. But here you were constantly amused. Like, I literally was waiting every second to see what they were going to say because it was so funny. I think it's important to note that this is Jordan Vogt-Roberts' first feature, and I think he does a really fantastic job with this.
I thought he brought this fresh perspective, again, the whole absurdist quality mixing with this coming-of-age story. It's new, it's different. You don't see these qualities mixed together, and I think, like you said, it works to bring up the emotional qualities.
He's got some really dynamic camera work in this as well.
Stuff that you don't see in indie movies.
Yeah, it's just these beautiful shots of even, you see like the nature shots and all these kind of movies, but his all seem appropriate, and they're all gorgeous.
This is a hilarious coming-of-age film that will touch your heart and tickle your funny bone in equal measure, so I say, see it.
This is a very realistic and relatable coming-of-age story with a lot of awesome characters. There's some little flaws here and there, but it's still definitely worth a see it.
Once you get past the farce of three kids building a house, this becomes a very pleasant picture. See it. All right, guys.
See it.
See it. Cheers.
Nick moves to New York to pursue the great American dream. He quickly becomes fascinated with his wealthy neighbor, Jay Gatsby, and his wild lifestyle. But Nick discovers that Jay and his cousin Daisy have a complicated past in The Great Gatsby.
Hello, I'm Liz.
I'm Rachel.
And I'm Kevin. And we're here to talk about Great Gatsby. We've all just seen it. What did we think? Did we think he shook off the dust of Australia, that Baz Luhrmann, or not?
Yes. The Great Gatsby is standard high school English fare. It's a story about decadence in society. It's told through the eyes of Nick Carraway, our narrator, and it's his meeting with Jay Gatsby. The screenplay is written by Craig Pierce and, of course, Baz Luhrmann.
It's hard to review this film without thinking about the Mia Farrow film, which I know I don't want to dote on too much, but I constantly found myself watching this new version of Great Gatsby and going, oh, I like what they did compared to what the Mia Farrow version did. And I think one of the major differences is the framing device of Nick Carraway being in the sanitarium, which I did a little research on. And apparently F. Scott Fitzgerald and his lady Zelda were each spent some time in a sanitarium. So I thought it was interesting that they brought in this autobiographical element into the film. So I liked that little intertextuality. I've heard a lot of complaints about the use of music, and they're like, well, F. Scott Fitzgerald really liked jazz, so I should hear more jazz in this film. And it's like, well, no, it's Baz Luhrmann's interpretation.
Exactly. The music choices worked, I think, in this. It works on a number of levels. It brings in a different audience, too, that probably wouldn't see this, because if you look at it, the book is very soapy and it's very simplistic. So I think if they had done it straight, like the Mia Farrow version...
To be fair, you've just bummed out a whole bunch of people by saying that. I don't know that it's soapy and simplistic. I think the language is beautiful.
I agree with that, but the story, the plot is pretty simplistic. But I don't think that would have drawn in a huge younger audience. And this, I think, like, you can hear people are excited about it because of his visual style, because he's going to make it something, he's going to make it seem like it's something bigger than probably what it is.
And what I liked about this version was the use of visual metaphors. I mean, we had Gatsby's ring, we had the red plane, we had the letters on the screen turning from snow into letters, and you know, of course, there's the green lighthouse, and there's this constant invocation of a visual metaphor throughout the film, and I thought that actually made it more literary, if anything.
Thematically, I know people are a little disappointed that like some of the subtlety and the richness of the language isn't in the film, but this is a visual medium. I think they put as much of the literature into the movie as they could without making it stuffy.
Yeah, I thought a lot of the dialogue and the voiceover really did seem to come right from the book.
She just wants to run away. She wants to leave that.
Jay, you can't repeat the past.
Can't repeat the past.
No.
Tobey Maguire was a complete misstep in terms of casting, because I really enjoyed the cast of this film, but I thought he was vanilla and boring and blah would be my ways to describe him.
See, I thought that he was sweet and naive, and he pulled off the character that he needed to be a juxtaposition to Leonardo DiCaprio's character. Also, he has to be a little bit vanilla, because otherwise he'll steal focus, and the story is not about him.
But he was uninterestingly vanilla.
I didn't think so. I thought he was sweet and hopeful.
I don't like him normally and stuff, and I was expecting the same thing, but I actually, within about half an hour, I was kind of like, wow, I'm impressed. I'm kind of liking him.
But Leonardo DiCaprio I was very impressed with, and he was the one I was worried about, because he's departed from the tragic love hero for quite a few years, and it was nice to see him back in that place. I thought he was intense and it was effective.
Yeah, I really liked him too. I was worried about his little man-boy thing going on, but and he also plays it with a little bit of a wink, you know, quality, which I appreciate.
He has a great character arc, from confident to vulnerable to borderline sociopathic.
I did like Carey Mulligan. I thought she was very well cast because she was appropriately wispy, and you could see her bowing to the persuasion of society, and I thought that was a really appropriate choice.
Yeah, and that is another thankless role where you have to be sweet and charming and likable and charismatic, but then you have to be weak and unsympathetic, and I thought she walks that line. Exactly.
Yeah, she did. She made me feel something for her, which I was worried that she wouldn't, because Mia Farrow, I know we're comparing again, but I was like, oh, stop with Mia Farrow. But with Carey Mulligan, I was pleasantly surprised.
Of course, if anything is not to your liking, I'll change it.
It's perfect. From your perfect, irresistible imagination.
So we have, obviously, Baz Luhrmann's style here. We have sort of this circus, crazy kaleidoscope world. We've got remixed music. We've got parties. I want to go to these parties.
They look terrifying. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
I really love his visual style, so I'll see anything that he does, but I think it really worked here. He did, you know, elicit some restraints, but what I love about him is that his first acts are always frenetic and crazy, and they bring you into this wild world, but then he knows exactly the right moment to kind of just, and he sucks you in, he quiets it down, and he really gets you engaged with the characters.
It felt very grown up to me. It was less frenetic, it was less chaotic. I was anticipating, you know, like seizures. I didn't get any. It was great. And there was a slow pace to the edit compared to his other films. And it was almost as if he took in the criticism and he restrained himself and made a more classically constructed film. Baz Luhrmann did what he does best. He tells a story about obsession, tragic love, and outsiders, and I was fully entertained. See it.
Baz Luhrmann's film is a beautiful carnival ride and a whimsical take on an American classic. See it.
The Great Gatsby is told in Baz Luhrmann's trademark, flashy style. It's romantic, it's sweeping, it's epic, and I loved it. See it.
Cheers.
Oh my goodness.
Baz Luhrmann.
There are so many DVDs coming out this week that it made it really difficult for us here at Just Seen It to pick just one. So we picked two. Stand Up Guys.
So I kind of missed you. Missed you too. That just get weird? Yes. This is my best friend. Just got back from a long trip. Let's just drop the welcome home thing.
Kill him by 10 o'clock in the a.m. or you're dead too.
And Beautiful Creatures.
My mama says her whole family are Satanists.
Emily, shut up.
According to the Weather Channel, and you can verify this on Google, there were unseasonably strong gusts from the east, which caused untold destruction.
I pray every night that you don't go straight to hell.
My family's different.
When Salim, Liz, and Brenna reviewed Stand Up Guys at the beginning of the year, they gave it a see it. And when Kevin, Rachel, and Aaron reviewed Beautiful Creatures, they also gave it a see it. Also out this week is The Last Stand, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, which received a see it, and Side Effects, which received a stream it. So there you have it, 4 very different movies for your home theater entertainment. Enjoy.
An operative is hired to expose an anarchist terrorist group. As she infiltrates their operation, she becomes sympathetic to their cause. Questioning her own beliefs, she must pick whose side she is on in the East.
Hi, I'm Aaron.
Hi, I'm Scott.
And I'm Rachel. And we are here today looking to the east to bring you the new Zalbat Munglige and Britt Marling film. They're the makers of Sound of My Voice, and we've all just seen it. We have a guest reviewer with us today, Scott Bowles. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm a film critic with USA Today. I do a little TV, but film is my passion.
Good to have you here.
Thank you.
This is, like you said, the second outing of Zalbat Munglige and Britt Marling, who did Sound of My Voice a couple years ago. It's very slow-moving. It's riddling, you know, there's a little bit of a mystery, but I think it kind of fell a little flat by the end, or I guess I was waiting for it to get exciting or for there to be some mystery or twist, and it just sort of never happened.
In the words of Zalbat Munglige, this film is 3 genres in one. It's a thriller, a love story, and a coming-of-age story. And I wouldn't say that this film is so strong in the espionage thriller part. There's, well, I don't know if that's the clearest genre explanation. There is mystery to it.
I know you guys saw the movie with me, but I don't think we saw the same movie. It did not work for me on almost any level. And I was like you. I was waiting for something to happen, and when it didn't, it disappointed me. That was not good enough for me.
This was a more accurate portrayal and a really interesting portrayal. It's not your standard hippie fare where it's, you know, lovey-dovey, and there is some of that in here, but it's very specific.
But these are terrorists who bathe in the nude, drive a Vanagon, dance around in circles, kiss each other's belly buttons.
But they're not really terrorists, that's the whole thing. These are people who want justice and are exposing large corporations for the different, you know, atrocities.
What's wrong with the fish?
They're dying because you poisoned the water.
I felt like I was supposed to be on the side of the East, of the terrorists, and not on the side of the company. So,
But, and here's the thing too, because it does feel at times a little bit heavy-handed where you do see so much of how evil these corporations are. But they have some characters from the corporations that aren't pure evil, you know, there's some humanity.
All these corporate guys need is a Darth Vader mask, though. I disagree. I think that this was extremely stereotyped.
There is one CEO whose company is polluting the water who does actually have a cathartic moment. And maybe he speaks for all the other CEOs.
My problem with the film is that everything was so simplified. Our terrorists are good, the corporations are bad, never the twain shall meet, and then in the final 15 minutes, it attempts to go down the middle. I saw that attempt. But it's already chosen its side.
yes, the film at times sets them up to be the, quote, protagonists, but it's not always that black and white, and I think that's what I appreciated about the film.
What's gonna happen to those people?
Nothing. If their drug is as safe as they claim it is.
Maybe we can talk a little bit about acting and see if that we have some similarities there. Britt Marling is our lead. I thought she did a great job. She's strong, convincing. You see her struggling with, you know, is the company I work for good, or are these people good? And she's nice to look at. She brings all the emotions. Yeah, I snuck that in. She's good looking. What can I say? I mean, I really enjoyed her, and I enjoyed everybody that was in the East, too. Alexander Skarsgård is the head of the organization. Ellen Page is one of the people who works there. Toby Kebbell is Doc. I really love Toby Kebbell.
Anyone who sees this movie is going to side with the eco-terrorists, not the corporation. But being a little bit heavy-handed doesn't work for me here. This was a movie that had a chance to really say something. It could have been complex, it could have been deep, and instead it just seemed to go for the easy characterizations and the easy plot turns.
Zalbat Mangelic as a director is very impressive. He continues to impress me. I really enjoyed Sound of My Voice, which was his previous film with Britt Marling. You see a lot of his style here. He doesn't have a lot of flash. Visually speaking, it's very simple. It's good looking. The score is very subtle. You can tell that he didn't spend a ton of money on this movie, and it's not the kind of movie that requires a ton of money.
And what's interesting, I mean, they shot with natural light, and that shows up. It's either sunlight or candlelight. They tried not to, overly finesse the film, and it doesn't look glossy in that Hollywood way, which I think is a definite plus.
And the script really, to me, does the heavy lifting, so he doesn't have to have visual flair. That way he can focus on telling the story more. And even though the story may not be, you may not agree that the story is the best story, I think it is told well.
You create, for a living, toxic chemicals that will outlive us all and feel nothing. But tonight, you will feel something.
I think you're right, that aesthetically this is a good-looking film, and for the money he had, he did a lot with it. I just wanted to see something in the narrative that was complex.
Though not as intriguing as their previous film, The East is a great piece of work from newcomers Zalbat Mangelic and Britt Marling, and I think it deserves attention, so I'm going to give it a see it.
This is a very compelling film. I think the characters are original, the story is original, and there's a lot of specific research that went into it. I think it's a great film. See it.
It's been a long time since I've seen a movie aim this high and miss by so much. I'm gonna say, skip it.
Well, it looks like our votes add up to 2 full tickets, which is a stream it for The East.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Starfleet Command comes under attack from one of its former officers.
Shall we begin?
So Captain Kirk and the crew of the Enterprise are sent on a manhunt.
Because this ship will not fit. We'll fit. Captain, we will not fit. We'll fit! We'll fit!
As the fugitive is caught, he reveals a much deeper conspiracy in Star Trek Into Darkness.
Hi, I'm Sean.
Hi, I'm Scott.
And I'm Salim, and we're here to talk about the sequel to the 2009 reboot of Star Trek Into Darkness. We've all just seen it. Scott, why don't you take it away?
It's a thrilling movie that is enormously entertaining, and just like the last movie, it's not just a great Star Trek movie, it's a great movie, period.
What I loved about the 2009 movie is that it brought in new fans like me, while also satisfying original fans, and I think this movie does the same, and even then some. There are only small gripes that I have with this film, and the first act probably has the smallest of them, and it's pacing. And that's mainly because it's action from the very beginning of the film. There's not a lot of time for character development.
Well, the 2009 film, we had this idea where we're going to reboot the franchise, and we're not just going to do that, we're going to introduce this alternate timeline / reality. And so I said, okay, everything that could go wrong with that idea is present in this film. Instead of saying we can go to the far reaches of the universe, we can go to wherever we want to with the Star Trek universe, what do? They collapse in on themselves and they go right back to everything we've already seen before.
I absolutely see where you're coming from. And as a Trekker, I have to say I kind of agree with you. They just had this brilliant idea with the last movie to break out and take risk. It was bold. They destroyed Vulcan. They put Spock and Uhura together. It's like, oh my God, this is awesome. So for them to sort of fall back on things that we are familiar with, not the preferred thing to do, but yeah, it still completely works. And it will work for people who don't know anything about Star Trek.
If anything, I just think it's an interesting story. These are interesting characters. We have Benedict Cumberbatch as John Harrison, a great villain as opposed to the villain that we had in the previous film. Yeah. I mean, because the movie is more so about Captain Kirk, Spock, and John Harrison. It's kind of the three of these guys playing off of each other, and I thought that was really fun.
I'm not on the same page there either. I actually thought this Benedict Cumberbatch character named John Harrison very superficial. I mean, Cumberbatch just kind of oozes and seeps evil, and there's nothing underneath the surface. I didn't have to chip away at this guy because everything was on the surface. I knew everything about this guy. I mean, there's some scenes where they're like, should we trust him? Should we not trust him? And I'm kind of screaming at the screen, no! It's pretty obvious that this guy's about as evil as it gets, and I like Cumberbatch, but the character could have been more subtly written.
Why did you allow me to live?
We all make mistakes.
I surrender to you because, despite your attempt to convince me otherwise, you seem to have a conscience, Mr. Kirk.
I think the characterization is really what makes this movie resonate more than just being an action-packed summer blockbuster, which it is. Zachary Quinto, Chris Pine, I love these actors. I think they have great chemistry together. You know, Benedict Cumberbatch is a stronger villain than Nero. I would love to have seen more of him on the screen. He's that good.
Yes. Did you like any of the characters?
Well, no, I do. Listen, in 2009, you had an enormous task of having to basically replace people. You had to replace William Shatner and DeForest Kelley and Leonard Nimoy, and I think that they did about as good a job as they possibly could do. A lot of what made these Star Trek movies great in the past was that we liked these characters so much and we were endeared to these characters so much. That continues, but still, this movie gives such short shrift to some of these people that I wanted them back and I wanted them on screen more.
Star Trek runs really deep for me. I mean, I've been a Trekker since I was 6 years old. That's 1974. Do the math. But for me to see the last film, the 2009 movie, and Into Darkness, and to see Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto play Kirk and Spock, and to not even think for a second about these larger-than-life performances of William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy speaks volumes of just how great they are in these roles.
Let's talk about JJ a little bit. Yep. We don't know if he's going to be back for the third one, but how do we think he did for this time around?
Okay, I think he did a great job. I think he upped his game as a filmmaker, making awesome, action-packed, epic movie that raises the bar from Star Trek 2009.
It's difficult for me to find flaws in J.J. Abrams' films because you can tell that he spends the time to hone these films down to be almost as perfect as they can be. I thought 2009 version of Star Trek was one of the more perfect films that have come out in the past 10 years.
It's an instant classic.
It's an instant classic. Like you said, it's not just a Star Trek sci-fi movie, it's just a great picture, period. This one, there's just small tidbits here and there that make it not as great, but they're really, really small gripes.
I found about 1.5 million errors with Super 8, so I don't even want to go ahead
Be careful, Sean, you are wearing a red shirt.
I am wearing a red shirt. I gotta...
Super 8, I can agree with you on.
Okay, there you go. J.J. Abrams is efficient. He gets the action done. I found it a little safe, though. I feel like we could go into bold territories, and it's fine. People will enjoy it. I think they will, but I want a little more nuance and subtlety to my Star Trek picture.
The final frontier is no longer the limit. Into Darkness boldly goes where no Star Trek movie has gone before, and then some. It's not just a great Star Trek movie, it's a great movie, period. It's another Star Trek movie for everyone. I say see it.
Star Trek Into Darkness is far from terrible, but it plays too much on the familiar. It timidly goes where everyone has gone before. Stream it.
Only very small gripes keep this from being as good as the 2009 Star Trek. Definite see it.
Our votes add up to 2.5 tickets, which is a see it for Star Trek Into Darkness.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers. Live long.
Yeah.
On our next episode, we review the new animated film, Epic. We check out the third installment in the comedy franchise, The Hangover Part 3, and the 6th installment in the street racing series, Fast and Furious 6. If it's summer, there must be sequels. Thanks for watching, and see you next week.
I'll teach you not to like Into Darkness.
Well, it's the wrong movie.
Oh, yeah.
Support for Just Seen It comes from Acorn, distributors of Miss Fisher's Murder Mysteries, a modern detective series set in 1920s Melbourne. Now on DVD and Blu-ray. More information is available at acornonline.com/PTV.